The first time Dominic Reeves laid eyes on Vanessa Porter, he knew she was different from anyone he'd ever met. Her smile could light up a room, and her laughter was infectious. It was at a charity gala in Boston where they first crossed paths. He was there representing his fledgling security company, while she worked for the event organizer. Dominic wasn't born into privilege. Raised by a single mother in a blue-collar neighborhood of Philadelphia, he'd clawed his way up from nothing. After a stint in the military where he served in special forces, he'd used his skills and savings to start Reeves EC, a boutique security firm specializing in high-net-worth clients. By 32, he'd transformed his one-man operation into a respected company with clients across New England. "You don't seem like the usual trust fund kids who show up at these things," Vanessa had remarked during their first conversation, her hazel eyes studying him intently. "That's because I built everything I have with these hands," Dominic replied, the calluses on his palms testament to his journey. Within 6 months, they were married. Vanessa claimed she'd fallen for his determination, his unwavering focus. "When you want something, you don't stop until you get it," she'd whispered on their wedding night. "It's terrifying and thrilling all at once." The early years were good ones. Reeves EC continued to grow, and soon they welcomed their twins, Abigail and Noah. Dominic purchased a colonial home in an upscale Boston suburb, not the grandest house on the block, but comfortable and paid for with honest work. He remembered carrying Vanessa over the threshold, her laughter echoing through the empty rooms they would soon fill with memories. "This is just the beginning," he promised. "Give me 10 years, and I'll give you the world." Bryant Walsh entered their lives when the twins were 7, a charismatic financial advisor with slicked back hair and tailored suits that cost more than Dominic's first car. Bryant came highly recommended by Vanessa's new friends from the country club. With Reeves EC expanding rapidly, Dominic needed someone to manage the company's growing assets. "You focus on what you do best, protection, and let me handle growing your wealth," Bryant had said during their first meeting, his smile revealing perfectly whitened teeth. Vanessa had been instantly impressed. "He manages money for the Aldridge family," she'd mentioned repeatedly after Bryant left. The Aldridges were old money, Boston aristocracy dating back generations. Something about Walsh had set off warning bells in Dominic's mind. Perhaps it was the way the man's eyes lingered on Vanessa, or how he spoke of wealth as if it were the only measure of a man's worth. Dominic couldn't shake the feeling that Bryant's interest in their lives went beyond professional curiosity. But Dominic had been busy with a major contract, and Vanessa had been insistent. "Don't you want more for the kids? For us?" she'd asked. Bryant knows how to turn money into real wealth. Against his better judgment, Dominic had agreed. That decision would come to haunt him in ways he couldn't yet imagine. As Reeves EC grew, so did the distance between Dominic and Vanessa. He noticed the changes gradually, designer clothes replacing her modest wardrobe, increasingly frequent girls' trips to New York and Miami, her dissatisfaction with their modest lifestyle despite their comfortable 7-figure income. "The Walsh family has just bought a summer home in the Hamptons," she'd mentioned casually over dinner. Or, "Abigail says Madison Aldridge's family has a private jet." Dominic had built his life and business on vigilance, on noticing the details others might miss. But sometimes, the things closest to us are the easiest to overlook, or perhaps the hardest to acknowledge. He didn't see the storm brewing in his own home until it was already upon him. The first undeniable sign came on Abigail's 15th birthday. Dominic had planned to leave work early to help set up for her party, but an emergency with a high-profile client delayed him. When he finally arrived home, carrying the customized sculpture Abigail had requested, the celebration was in full swing. Through the living room window, he spotted Bryant Walsh standing next to Vanessa, his hand resting casually on the small of her back. It wasn't the touch itself that stopped Dominic cold, it was Vanessa's response. She didn't move away or stiffen. Instead, she leaned into Bryant's touch with the familiarity of someone who had done so countless times before. Dominic set down the ice sculpture and watched for a moment longer. Bryant whispered something in Vanessa's ear, and she laughed. That full-throated laugh Dominic hadn't heard directed at him in years. When he finally entered, Vanessa's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she recovered. "There you are. We were beginning to think you wouldn't make it." "Dad, you missed the cake," Noah said, his voice carrying a hint of accusation. "I know, buddy. I'm sorry. Client emergency." Dominic ruffled his son's hair, noting how Noah stepped away from his touch. "It's fine," Abigail said without looking at him. "Bryant took video of everything. You can watch it later." Bryant. Not Mr. Walsh. The familiarity wasn't lost on Dominic. He felt a pang in his chest. Well, the man of the hour finally arrives. Bryant approached with 2 glasses of champagne, offering one to Dominic. "Your wife has been holding down the fort admirably. You've got yourself a real treasure here." The possessive glint in Bryant's eyes, as they flicked toward Vanessa, told Dominic everything he needed to know. Later that night, after the guests had left and the kids had gone to bed, Dominic confronted Vanessa in their bedroom. "How long?" he asked quietly. Vanessa froze while removing her earrings, then continued as if she hadn't heard the question. "How long what? How long have you been sleeping with Walsh?" Dominic asked. The earrings slipped from her fingers, bouncing on the hardwood floor. "That's ridiculous. He's our financial advisor. He's married. So are you." Dominic replied evenly. "Vanessa, I saw the way you two were together tonight. The way you leaned into his touch, the way you laughed at his jokes. It's clear as day." Vanessa's face hardened. "You're never here, Dominic. You promised me the world, but all I got was a husband who's married to his company. That company pays for everything in this house. Everything you're wearing. Everything the kids have." "Money isn't everything," Dominic countered. "The kids need a father who's present. Don't use our children to justify your affair," Vanessa snapped. The slap came fast, but Dominic was faster. He caught her wrist mid-swing, his grip firm but controlled. "Don't," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Don't ever try that again." Fear flickered across Vanessa's face, quickly replaced by cold anger. "You're hurting me." He released her wrist. "I want him out of our lives. Professionally and personally. Tomorrow." "Or what?" Vanessa's chin lifted defiantly. "You'll divorce me." "Then what?" "You'll lose half of everything. The kids will hate you for breaking up the family." Her words hit their mark. Dominic had come from nothing, built everything through relentless work. The thought of losing half his company, half his assets, but more importantly, his children, struck him to the core. "Think carefully about your next move," Vanessa continued, sensing his vulnerability. "Bryant says Reeves EC could be worth 8 figures in another 2 years with the right investments. Divorce me now and you cut that potential in half." Dominic stared at his wife, this stranger wearing Vanessa's face, and realized she'd been planning this conversation, this moment, for months, possibly years. "Give me time to think," he finally said. Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Take all the time you need. But Bryant stays. The kids adore him, and he's doubled our investment portfolio in 3 years." That night, Dominic slept in the guest room as he stared at the ceiling. His mind raced. Vanessa was right about one thing. A divorce now would be catastrophic, financially and emotionally. He needed time to consider his options, to protect what he'd built. What Vanessa didn't know, what she couldn't possibly understand, was that Dominic Reeves never surrendered. Not in the slums of Philadelphia. Not in the hellholes where he'd served overseas. And certainly not in his own home. If there was one lesson life had taught him, it was that patience was often the deadliest weapon in one's arsenal. So he would wait. And he would plan. And when the time came, Vanessa and Bryant would learn exactly what kind of man they had underestimated. For the next 2 years, Dominic played the role of the oblivious husband perfectly. He worked longer hours, giving Vanessa and Bryant the time and space for their affair to bloom in plain sight. He attended every school event, every parent-teacher conference, and made sure to be present for the kids in a way he hadn't been before. He even started taking Abigail and Noah on weekend trips, just the three of them, rebuilding the bonds that had been strained by his absence. Meanwhile, he quietly began to gather evidence, documenting every interaction between Vanessa and Bryant, every suspicious transaction, every hint of their betrayal. He hired a private investigator to follow them, to capture their moments of intimacy on camera, to build an ironclad case against them. And he waited, biding his time, letting the noose tighten around their necks. He knew that the longer he waited, the more they would let their guard down, the more they would reveal. And when the time was right, he would strike. He watched as his children grew increasingly distant, influenced by their mother's subtle manipulations and Bryant's expensive gifts. Abigail and Noah, now 17, barely acknowledged his presence at dinner, preferring instead to discuss their activities with Uncle Bryant. Trips on his yacht, weekends at his country club, the colleges he promised to help them attend. Through it all, Dominic maintained his composure, even as he set his plan in motion. The security business had taught him valuable lessons about human nature and vulnerability. Everyone had weak points, everyone left traces, and patience always revealed the truth. His 45th birthday arrived on a crisp October morning. Dominic had expected it to pass without celebration, as had become the norm. Instead, Vanessa surprised him with news over breakfast. "I've arranged a special dinner tonight," she announced, not looking up from her phone. "Just the family. The Plaza Hotel, 7 o'clock. Dominic studied his wife's face. In recent months, her demeanor toward him had shifted from cold hostility to something resembling pity. He understood why now. Her plan must be reaching its culmination. "Any special occasion?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. Vanessa finally looked up, her smile practiced. "It's your birthday, isn't it? 45 is a milestone." Throughout the day, Dominic went about his normal routine at Reeves EC, confirming with his most trusted employee, Lawrence Delacroix, that everything was in place. Lawrence, a former military colleague who had joined the company 5 years earlier, was the only person Dominic had confided in. "It's all set," Lawrence confirmed, sliding a small flash drive across Dominic's desk. "Are you sure about this timing? Once we start, there's no going back." Dominic pocketed the drive. "I've given them 2 years of freedom. That ends tonight." When Dominic arrived at the Plaza Hotel that evening, the maitre d' directed him to a private dining room. Inside, he found not just Vanessa and the twins, but also Bryant Walsh and a silver-haired man Dominic recognized as Judge Harold Prescott, known for handling high-profile divorce cases and a close friend of the Aldridge family. "Surprise," Vanessa said, but there was no warmth in her voice. "I hope you don't mind the extra guests." Dominic smiled tightly. "Not at all. The more, the merrier." Throughout the appetizers, conversation remained superficial. The twins spoke almost exclusively to Bryant, who captivated them with stories of a planned summer trip to his new villa in Monaco. As the main course arrived, Vanessa cleared her throat. "Dominic, I think it's time we stopped pretending." The table fell silent. Abigail and Noah exchanged glances but didn't seem surprised. "Pretending what?" Dominic asked, cutting into his steak. "That this marriage is working," Vanessa replied, placing a thick envelope beside his plate. "These are divorce papers. Judge Prescott has been kind enough to expedite matters." Bryant placed a proprietary hand over Vanessa's, a self-satisfied smile on his lips. "We thought your birthday would be appropriate. A new beginning for everyone," Vanessa said. Dominic set down his knife and fork and opened the envelope, scanning the documents inside. The terms were brutal. Vanessa would receive the house, majority ownership of Reeves EC, and full custody of the children. Dominic would be left with a modest stipend and limited visitation rights. "The judge granted me everything you own," Vanessa laughed softly. Bryant's legal team found some creative interpretations of your business contracts. Dominic closed the envelope and looked at his children. And you too. What do you think about all this? Noah stared at his plate. Abigail, always the bolder of the two, met his gaze. Mom says you've been using the company to hide money, that you never really cared about us. We're legally changing our names. To Walsh, Noah added, finally looking up. After the adoption, don't bother calling us anymore. Abigail continued, her voice hard, but her eyes betraying uncertainty. We're starting fresh. Bryant's already arranged for us to transfer to Dalton Prep for senior year. Dominic nodded slowly, his face revealing nothing of the rage and pain churning inside him. He picked up his water glass, taking a deliberate sip before responding. I understand. He looked at Vanessa, then Bryant, then Judge Prescott. Is there anything else? Any other surprises for the birthday boy? The lack of resistance seemed to unnerve Vanessa slightly. You're not going to fight this. Dominic stood, buttoning his suit jacket. What's there to fight? You've clearly planned everything meticulously. He nodded to Judge Prescott. I'll have my lawyer review these and respond accordingly. Don't waste your money on expensive lawyers, Bryant interjected. The prenup you signed gives Vanessa controlling interest in any business started during the marriage. Dominic paused. I'm well aware of what I signed. He looked at his children one last time. When you're ready to hear the truth, you know how to reach me. As he turned to leave, Vanessa called after him. Aren't you going to sign the papers? Dominic glanced back. On my birthday. No, but don't worry. You'll have your answers soon enough. He simply nodded and left without another word. As the door closed behind him, he heard Bryant's laugh, followed by the clink of champagne glasses. The celebration had begun. Outside the hotel, Lawrence was waiting in a nondescript sit-in. How did it go? He asked as Dominic slid into the passenger seat. Exactly as expected. They're celebrating as we speak. Dominic pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Mr. Frost. It's time. Deliver the envelope to the Walsh residence. And Lawrence. Drive by the house. I want to see their faces when they get the news. As they drove through the night, Dominic finally allowed himself a small, cold smile. For 2 years, he had endured humiliation and betrayal. For 2 years, he had built his case piece by piece. Now, it was time for the reckoning. Now, Vanessa, Bryant, and everyone who had chosen their side were about to learn a painful lesson. Dominic Reeves never forgave. And he never, ever forgot. As Lawrence's sit-in idled near the sprawling Walsh estate, a Georgian colonial significantly grander than the home Dominic had provided for his family, Dominic watched Gerald Frost, his attorney, approach the gate with a manila envelope in hand. Frost, a razor-sharp litigator with a reputation for ruthless efficiency, had been working with Dominic for the past 18 months, ever since Dominic had first confirmed the affair. What Vanessa didn't know, what Bryant's expert legal team had failed to discover, was that Gerald Frost specialized in asset protection and had helped Dominic prepare for this very scenario long before Vanessa had contemplated divorce. Through the car's tinted windows, Dominic observed as the security guard accepted the envelope and disappeared inside the mansion. 10 minutes later, Dominic's phone buzzed with a text from Frost. Delivered. Response as expected. Circle back, Dominic instructed Lawrence. As they approached the estate again, they could see frantic activity through the windows, people moving rapidly, gesturing wildly. Dominic's phone rang. Vanessa. He let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. And again. Aren't you going to answer? Lawrence asked. Not yet. Let them stew for a while. After the 6th call, Dominic picked up. Yes. What is this? Vanessa's voice was shrill with panic. What kind of sick joke are you playing? It's no joke, Vanessa. Just information I thought you should have before proceeding with the divorce. This can't be real. The company, the house, everything. It says it's all owned by some trust. The Reeves Family Trust, Dominic confirmed. Established 10 years ago, before Reeves EC's value exploded. Everything I've built is legally owned by the trust, not me personally. That's impossible. I would have known. Would you? You were too busy planning shopping trips and charity galas to take an interest in the boring details of our finances. You left that to Bryant. Bryant says this is fraud. Judge Prescott is already looking into invalidating the trust. Dominic laughed softly. Good luck with that. The trust was established in the Cayman Islands, with a secondary structure in Liechtenstein. Judge Prescott's jurisdiction ends at the U.S. border. The children are beneficiaries of that trust. Vanessa's voice cracked. You can't cut them off. I haven't cut anyone off. Read the documents carefully, Vanessa. The twins remain beneficiaries. They'll receive their distributions when they turn 25. Unless, of course, they legally change their names or are adopted by someone else. Then the terms change significantly. A beat of silence. Then, more controlled. You planned this all along. No, you forced my hand. I created the trust to protect our family's future. You're the one who decided to destroy that family. Dominic ended the call, leaving Vanessa in stunned silence, and allowed himself a deep, steadying breath as the consequences of her and Bryant's actions began to unfold. The judge will never. The judge will do whatever the law requires. And the law is very clear on this matter. Dominic's voice hardened. You wanted a war, Vanessa. Now you have one. Through the car window, Dominic could see Bryant emerge from the house, foam pressed to his ear, his normally perfect appearance disheveled. Your boyfriend looks upset, Dominic observed. Perhaps he's realizing that the fortune he thought he was marrying into doesn't actually exist. You stubborn man, Vanessa hissed. The kids will never forgive you for this. They barely acknowledge me now, thanks to your manipulation. I have nothing left to lose on that front. This isn't over, Dominic. On that, we agree. This is just the beginning. Enjoy the party. Dominic ended the call and nodded to Lawrence. Take me home. Not to the house. That hasn't been home for a long time. The penthouse downtown. As they drove away from the Walsh estate, Dominic felt no joy, no triumph, only grim determination. Phase 1 was complete. Vanessa and Bryant now understood that the financial windfall they'd anticipated wouldn't materialize. But that was merely the opening move in a much larger game. The next morning, Dominic was awakened by a call from Gerald Frost. They've been busy, Frost reported. Bryant's team filed emergency motions all night, trying to freeze the trust assets. Judge Prescott signed some of them, but they're essentially worthless against the international structure. And Vanessa. She's demanding a meeting. Says she wants to discuss a reasonable settlement. Dominic smiled coldly. Set it up. My office, 3 o'clock. When Vanessa arrived at Reeves EC headquarters, she was alone. No Bryant. No lawyers. She clearly made an effort with her appearance, wearing the conservative blue dress Dominic had always admired. Her makeup was subtle. Her expression contrite. You look tired, she observed as she took a seat across from him. Cut the concerned wife act, Vanessa. What do you want? Her facade cracked slightly. Fine. I want to discuss reasonable terms. This trust nonsense is just a negotiating tactic. I understand that. So let's negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. The trust exists. It's legal. It's ironclad. Everyone has a price. Dominic, what's yours? You still don't get it, do you? Dominic leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. This isn't about money. This is about justice. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Justice. You're punishing the children for my mistakes. I've punished no one. I've protected what's theirs from a man who saw them as nothing more than a path to wealth. Bryant cares for them. Bryant cares for what they represent. Access to money he didn't earn. Tell me, what happens to his affection when he realizes there's nothing to gain? Vanessa's silence was answer enough. The children remain beneficiaries, Dominic continued. They'll have everything they need for college, for their futures. But you and Walsh, you get nothing. So I'm supposed to live on what? Air? Dominic shook his head, his expression resolute. You wanted freedom, Vanessa. Now you have it. You'll have to make your own way, just as I always have. You'll receive exactly what the prenup stipulates in case of infidelity. $300,000. A fair amount for 12 years and 2 children. Vanessa's laugh was brittle. You expect me to survive on that? The country club membership alone costs half that annually. Then perhaps it's time to reconsider your priorities. Rising from her chair, Vanessa's expression hardened. You've made a mistake, Dominic. A big one. Bryant has connections you can't imagine. Threaten me again, and the offer drops to the legal minimum. As she reached the door, Vanessa paused. The children want to know if you'll be at Noah's recital next week. The question caught Dominic off guard. Noah's cello recitals had once been sacrosanct events in his calendar, but it had been over a year since he'd been invited to one. Will I be welcome? He asked quietly. They're still your children, regardless of what's happening between us. Dominic nodded slowly. Then I'll be there. After Vanessa left, Lawrence entered the office. You know it's a trap, right? Of course it is, Dominic replied. But sometimes you have to walk into a trap to spring a bigger one. The Boston Symphony Hall gleamed with old-world elegance as Dominic arrived for Noah's recital. He'd intentionally timed his entrance to avoid any preliminary interaction with Vanessa or Bryant, slipping into his seat just as the lights dimmed. From 3 rows ahead, he could see the back of Vanessa's head, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo. Beside her sat Bryant, his arm draped possessively across the back of her chair. What surprised Dominic was the presence of Judge Prescott and his wife on Bryant's other side, along with several members of the Aldridge family, Boston elite whose social circles had previously been closed to Dominic despite his financial success. The message was clear. Vanessa and Bryant wanted him to see their allies, to understand that he was outmatched socially and politically. When Noah took the stage, Dominic felt a surge of pride despite everything. His son had grown taller in recent months, his lanky frame filling out, his features maturing into a man's. As Noah began to play Elgar's cello concerto, Dominic was struck by the emotion in his performance, a depth of feeling that seemed beyond his 17 years. During intermission, Dominic remained seated while others filed into the lobby for champagne and conversation. He was reviewing the program notes when a shadow fell across the page. You came. Abigail stood in the aisle, her expression unreadable. I was invited, Dominic replied cautiously. His daughter hesitated, then slid into the seat beside him. Mom says you're trying to ruin us, that the trust thing is just a way to keep money from her. What do you think? Abigail studied her hands. I think everyone's lying. Mom, Bryant, I don't know what to believe anymore. For the first time in months, Dominic saw a glimpse of his daughter beneath the carefully constructed persona of indifference. He realized that, despite everything, the truth still held power between them. I've never lied to you, Abby. I may not have told you everything, but what I've told you has always been the truth. Then tell me the truth now. Are you trying to leave us with nothing? The trust ensures that you and Noah will have everything you need. College, grad school if you want it. Even seed money to start your own businesses someday. But it's structured to protect those assets from being misused. By Mom. Abigail pressed. Dominic chose his words carefully. By anyone who doesn't have your best interests at heart. Abigail's eyes, so like his own, searched his face. Bryant says he's going to adopt us after the divorce. That it will be better for everyone. The statement was meant to hurt him, and it did. But Dominic had anticipated this move. That's your choice to make. But before you decide, you should have all the facts. He reached into his jacket pocket and removed a small envelope, offering it to Abigail. Don't open this here. Wait until you're alone. Abigail stared at the envelope. What is it? Information that might help you understand why your mother and Bryant are so desperate to rush this divorce through. The lights flickered, signaling the end of intermission. Abigail pocketed the envelope and stood. I have to go. Mom will wonder where I am. Abby, Dominic called softly as she turned to leave. Whatever you decide, I'll always be your father. Nothing changes that. Something flickered across Abigail's face. Uncertainty, perhaps even a hint of the affection that had once been freely given, before she hurried back to her seat. The second half of the recital passed in a blur, Dominic's mind racing with possibilities. Had he reached Abigail? Would she read the contents of the envelope? Or would her loyalty to Vanessa, cultivated through years of subtle manipulation, prevail? As the final notes of Noah's solo performance faded, the audience erupted in applause. Dominic stood with the rest, his eyes fixed on his son, willing Noah to look his way. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the crowded hall, and Noah gave an almost imperceptible nod before his gaze slid away. It wasn't much, but it was something. A crack in the wall Vanessa had built between Dominic and his children. Following the recital, Dominic purposely lingered near the exit, knowing Vanessa would need to pass him on her way out. When she appeared, flanked by Bryant and the twins, her smile faltered slightly before recovering. Dominic, I'm glad you could make it. Her voice carried just enough warmth to seem genuine to onlookers. Noah was exceptional, Dominic replied, addressing his son directly. You've improved tremendously since I last heard you play. Before Noah could respond, Bryant stepped forward, extending his hand. Reeves, good of you to show support despite the circumstances. Dominic ignored the offered hand. My relationship with my children is none of your concern, Walsh. Bryant's smile tightened. Well, that may change soon enough. The adoption papers are already being processed. Noah looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot, while Abigail kept her gaze on the floor. Dominic could sense the strain in both of them. Is that so? Dominic looked past Bryant to where Judge Prescott was conversing with members of the Aldridge family. You seem very confident in the outcome. The judge is an old family friend, Bryant replied, lowering his voice. He understands what's best for the children. And what's best for your investment portfolio, I imagine. Bryant's composure slipped for a moment, his eyes flashing with anger. You know, for a man about to lose everything, you're remarkably calm. I've already lost what matters most, Dominic replied, his gaze shifting to his children. Everything else is just details. As the group moved past him toward the exit, Abigail paused, falling slightly behind. Dad? She whispered, barely audible. I'll read it tonight. Before Dominic could respond, she hurried after her mother, leaving him standing alone in the rapidly emptying hall. Lawrence was waiting outside in the car. How did it go? Abigail took the envelope. Now we wait. And if she doesn't act on it? Dominic stared out at the Boston skyline, the city lights reflecting off the Charles River. Then we moved to Plan B. But my daughter is smarter than Vanessa gives her credit for. She'll connect the dots. At 2 a.m, Dominic's phone rang. Abigail, I need to see you, she said without preamble, her voice tight with emotion. Now, and bring the files from the other envelope, the one you mentioned in your note. Where are you? At Layla's house. Mom thinks I'm at a sleepover. Layla Martinez had been Abigail's best friend since elementary school, one of the few connections Vanessa hadn't managed to sever. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When Dominic arrived at the Martinez home, Abigail was waiting on the front steps, her face pale in the street light. Without a word, she led him to Layla's father's study, where they could talk privately. Is it true? She demanded as soon as the door closed behind them. Everything in those files. Dominic nodded. Every word, every document, every transaction. Bryant's been embezzling from his clients. From the Aldridges. Not just embezzling. Running a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. The Aldridges are actually nearly bankrupt, but they don't know it yet. Their money, along with funds from a dozen other wealthy families, has been systematically siphoned into offshore accounts for years. Abigail sank into a leather chair. And Mom, did she know? This was the crucial question, one Dominic had wrestled with himself. I believe she suspected something wasn't right, but Bryant kept her insulated from the details, letting her enjoy the lifestyle without questioning its source. The adoption, the rush to divorce. It's all about the trust, isn't it? He needs our money because his whole scheme is about to collapse. The SEC has been building a case for months. Bryant doesn't know it yet, but they're moving in next week. When they do, everything he has will be frozen or seized. Abigail's eyes filled with tears. And we were just what? His escape plan. Dominic nodded gently, his voice soft but unwavering. You and Noah were his lifeline. Abby, the trust was always the real prize, not the family. But you have the truth now, and it's up to you to decide what to do with it. His new source of funds once the scheme collapsed. You, Noah, and the trust. Dominic confirmed gently. If he could legally adopt you both, he could petition for control of your trust distributions as your legal guardian. What about Noah? Does he know? Not yet. I was hoping you might help with that. Abigail wiped her eyes, her expression hardening into something Dominic recognized. His own determination reflected in his daughter's face. I'll talk to him. But Dad, what happens when the SEC moves? Mom will be implicated too. Not if she cooperates. I've arranged for immunity in exchange for her testimony, but she has to come forward voluntarily before the arrests begin. She won't, Abigail said with certainty. She's too proud, too invested in the life Bryant promised her. Then she'll face the consequences of her choices. Abigail stood, pacing the small study. This will destroy everything. Our home, our school, our friends. Your home is protected by the trust. Your education is secured. As for friends, real friends stand by you in difficult times. The rest aren't worth keeping. After a long moment, Abigail nodded. I'll talk to Noah tonight. He's staying at Bryant's lake house, but I can get there. Be careful. Don't let Bryant suspect anything. I won't. Abigail hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged Dominic tightly. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything I said, for believing the worst about you. Dominic held his daughter, the first genuine contact they'd shared in years. You have nothing to apologize for. You were manipulated by experts. As Abigail pulled away, her expression turned solemn. What happens next? After Noah knows? That depends on what you both want. I won't force any decision on you. And Mom. Dominic's face hardened slightly. Your mother made her choice 2 years ago, when she decided to betray our family. My concern now is protecting you and Noah from the fallout. 3 days after the recital, Dominic received a text from Noah, the first direct communication from his son in over a year. Need to talk. Alone. The boathouse, 2 p.m. The boathouse by the Charles River had been a special place for Dominic and Noah. Years earlier, they had spent countless weekends there, Dominic teaching his son to row, to respect the water's power, to find solace in the rhythm of oars cutting through the current. Dominic arrived early, watching from a distance as students from nearby universities glided past in sleek racing shells. At precisely 2 o'clock, he spotted Noah approaching. Shoulders hunched against the brisk autumn wind, his features set in grim determination. You came alone? Noah asked, scanning the area suspiciously. As requested. Dominic gestured to a bench overlooking the river. Shall we sit? Noah remained standing. Abby showed me the files. About Bryant. About what he's been doing. And, is it true? All of it. Yes. Noah's composure cracked slightly, his voice trembling. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Why let us believe? Would you have believed me? Dominic asked quietly. Or would you have seen it as a desperate attempt to turn you against your mother and Bryant? The silence that followed was answer enough. Bryant's been asking questions, Noah finally said, about the trust, about what assets can be accessed before we turn 25. He keeps saying we need to legally formalize our relationship before the divorce is finalized. And what do you think about that now? Noah's laugh was bitter beyond his years. I think I was an idiot. We both were. He never cared about us, just what we represented. People are often not what they seem, Noah. Especially when money is involved. Mon fa. Noah hesitated. She must have known something. Dominic chose his words carefully. Your mother wanted a certain lifestyle. Bryant offered it. Sometimes people choose not to question things that seem too good to be true. She's still our mother. Yes. And whatever happens, that won't change. Noah finally sat beside Dominic, his lanky frame folding onto the bench. What happens now? Abby says the SEC is moving in soon. Tuesday they'll arrest Bryant at his office. The indictments are sealed, but the charges include securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering. Enough to put him away for decades. And Mom. That depends on her choices in the next few days. Noah stared out at the river. She won't leave him. She's too proud to admit she was wrong. Then she'll face the consequences alongside him. What about us? Me and Abby. You're both welcome to come home. The house is still yours. It always was. The trust ensures that. And if we don't, if we stay with Mom. Dominic's heart constricted, but his voice remained steady. Then that's your choice to make. The trust will still provide for your education, your basic needs, but I won't force you to choose me. Noah was silent for a long moment. I need time to think, to talk to Abby again. Of course. Dominic reached into his pocket and removed a key. This is to the lake cabin in New Hampshire. It's not in my name or the trust. No one would think to look for you there. If things get overwhelming in the next few days, you and Abby can go there. Food, clothes, everything you need is already stocked. Noah took the key, turning it over in his fingers. You thought of everything, didn't you? I've had 2 years to plan, Dominic replied simply. As Noah stood to leave, he paused. The cello piece at the recital. I played it for you. It was always your favorite. Before Dominic could respond, Noah walked away, his tall figure soon disappearing around a bend in the riverbank. That evening, Dominic received a call from Lawrence. The SEC has moved up their timeline. They're going in tomorrow morning, not Tuesday. Why the change? Someone tipped off one of Bryant's associates. They're worried about evidence being destroyed, money being moved. Dominic swore under his breath. The kids need to know. They need to be clear of the fallout. Already handled. I've sent them a secure message with the details. They're to stay at the cabin until further notice. Good. And Lawrence, make sure the cabin is fully stocked. They might be there for a while. Already done, boss. I've got everything covered. Thank you, Lawrence. Keep me updated. Will do. Be careful, Dominic. This storm is about to hit hard. It's been brewing for a long time. I'm ready. Gerald has a court order granting you emergency custody, pending the investigation. He's filing it first thing tomorrow. And Vanessa? Dominic asked sharply. No movement on that front. Our sources say she's planning a charity gala at the Walsh estate tomorrow night. Business as usual. Dominic closed his eyes, a mixture of anger and pity washing over him. She's going to be blindsided. That was always the plan, wasn't it? The plan was to give her a chance to cooperate, to save herself. And you did. She chose not to take it. The next morning, Dominic was in his office reviewing security contracts when Gerald Frost burst in without knocking, something the normally composed attorney had never done before. They're gone, Gerald announced, his face flushed. Who's gone? Bryant, Vanessa, the children. They left the country last night on Bryant's private jet. Bahamas first, then unknown. Dominic's blood ran cold. The children went willingly. Unclear. The manifest shows all 4 of them, but no details on circumstances. Dominic was already reaching for his phone when it buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Dad. Trapped. Mom. Bryant forcing us. Bahamas, then Switzerland. Help. The message was from Abigail or Noah. It was impossible to tell which, but the meaning was clear. They were being taken against their will. Get me on the next flight to Nassau, Dominic instructed Gerald as he grabbed his coat. And contact our security team in the Bahamas. I want eyes on them the moment they land. The SEC raid is happening as we speak, Gerald reported. Bryant's assets are being frozen worldwide. If they're heading to Switzerland, they must have accounts the authorities don't know about. They won't make it to Switzerland, Dominic said with deadly certainty. Not with my children. As he strode from the office, Lawrence fell into step beside him. You're going after them alone. This is family business now. Then you'll need backup. Lawrence held up a small duffel bag. Passports, cash, weapons, all untraceable. Dominic paused, studying his old friend's face. This could get complicated, legally and otherwise. Lawrence's smile was grim. Since when has that stopped us? 6 hours later, Dominic and Lawrence were in Nassau, where Bryant kept a luxury condo in a gated oceanfront community. Local security, privately contracted through a subsidiary of Reeves EC, confirmed that the Walsh party had arrived, but reported unusual activity. The children are being kept separate from the adults, reported Ramon Diaz, head of the Bahamas security team. Guards posted outside their rooms. No one in or out without Walsh's express permission. So they're essentially prisoners, Dominic said quietly. It appears so, sir. We've also intercepted communications about a yacht departing tonight. Destination St. Moritz. Switzerland doesn't have a coastline, Lawrence noted. The yacht goes to Italy. Private transportation from there, Raymond explained. Standard route for those looking to avoid official scrutiny. Dominic's jaw tightened as he realized how desperate Bryant and Vanessa were to escape justice. There was no time to waste. Dominic considered his options. A direct confrontation would put the children at risk. Legal channels would move too slowly. He needed a precision approach. Get me the building schematics, he instructed Ramon, and find out which rooms the children are in. By nightfall, Dominic had a plan. The condo security system was sophisticated, but not impenetrable, especially not to someone who designed such systems for a living. With Raymond's team creating a distraction at the main gate, Dominic and Lawrence would access the building through the service entrance, neutralize the guards, and extract Abigail and Noah. What about Vanessa and Bryant? Lawrence asked as they prepared. Not our concern, Dominic replied coldly. Once the children are safe, the authorities can handle the rest. At precisely midnight, the operation began. The distraction, a staged altercation between 2 drunk security guards, drew attention to the front gate. Meanwhile, Dominic and Lawrence, dressed as maintenance workers, slipped through the service entrance and made their way to the 11th floor, where the Walsh condo occupied the entire east wing. The first guard went down silently, incapacitated by Lawrence's precise application of a sedative-filled syringe. The second required more persuasion, a swift blow to the throat followed by pressure to the carotid artery, rendering him unconscious within seconds. Inside the condo, Dominic moved with the silent efficiency that had once made him an elite soldier. The layout matched the schematics perfectly. Master suite to the left, guest rooms to the right, expansive living area in between. He found Abigail first, her door locked from the outside. A simple pick took care of that obstacle. She was sitting on the bed, fully dressed, a small backpack beside her. I knew you'd come, she whispered, embracing him briefly before pulling back. Noah's next door. They took our phones, but I managed to send that text from a staff member's phone. Smart girl. Where are Vanessa and Bryant? Master suite. They'd been arguing all day. Bryant's contacts at the bank called. Something about accounts being frozen. Dominic nodded. The SEC moved faster than expected. Stay here with Lawrence while I get Noah. Noah's room was also locked, but unlike his sister, he was sound asleep, unnaturally so. They drugged him, Abigail explained when Dominic carried Noah back to her room. He overheard Bryant talking about selling the trust assets and refused to cooperate with the adoption papers. Bryant had his doctor give Noah something to calm him down. Rage, unlike anything Dominic had felt in years, coursed through him. Can he travel? In a few hours, maybe. Whatever they gave him was strong. We don't have a few hours. Dominic turned to Lawrence. Change of plans. I need you to get the kids to the safe house in Key West. I'll follow once I've dealt with Vanessa and Bryant. Dad? No, Abigail protested. Just leave them. The authorities will. The authorities will move too slowly, Dominic finished. I need to make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Stay with Lawrence. He'll keep you safe until I get there. With a final, reassuring squeeze of Abigail's hand, Dominic slipped back into the shadows, his mind set on the confrontation ahead. Bryant has connections everywhere, contingency plans we don't know about. I need to make sure he can't come after you again. Lawrence hesitated. Are you sure about this? Once you cross that line. The line was crossed when they drugged my son and attempted to kidnap my children. Dominic's voice was ice. Get them out. Now. As Lawrence carried the still unconscious Noah toward the service elevator, Abigail lingered. Dad, what are you going to do? Dominic kissed his daughter's forehead. What I should have done 2 years ago. Now go. I'll meet you in Key West by tomorrow night. Once Abigail had joined Lawrence in the elevator, Dominic turned toward the master suite, his expression hardening into something primitive and dangerous. For 2 years, he had played by the rules, had used the system to his advantage. But drugging Noah, forcing the children to flee the country, those weren't the actions of people who respected rules or boundaries. It was time Vanessa and Bryant understood exactly who they had chosen to betray. The master suite of Bryant's Bahamas condo was a study in opulence. Italian marble, custom furnishings, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the moonlit Caribbean. Dominic moved through the darkness with practiced ease, the skills honed during his military years returning like muscle memory. From the adjoining sitting room, he could hear Vanessa and Bryant arguing in hushed, urgent tones. Don't you understand? Bryant was saying, his voice strained. These aren't just normal accounts being frozen. They're seizing everything. The houses, the yacht, even the art collection. You said you had contingencies, Vanessa hissed back. Secret accounts, offshore holdings. I do. But moving money takes time, especially with this much scrutiny. The Swiss accounts should still be secure, but we need to get there, establish residency. And the children? What about them? Noah is practically comatose thanks to whatever your doctor friend gave him. A mild sedative, nothing more. He'll be fine by morning and more compliant. Once we're in Switzerland, we'll finalize the adoption paperwork with my contacts there. The trust distributions will come through regardless of U.S. legal proceedings. And if Dominic comes after us, you know he will. Bryant's laugh was dismissive. Dominic is a predictable man. He'll work through legal channels, file motions, petition courts. By the time he navigates the international legal system, we'll be established in Zurich with new identities and access to the trust. You don't know him like I do, Vanessa warned. He's not just the businessman you've seen. There's another side to him, something from before we met, something dangerous. Please, the man makes his living installing alarm systems for rich widows. He's a glorified security guard. Dominic had heard enough. He stepped into the bedroom doorway, his silhouette framed against the dim light from the sitting room. You should have listened to her, Bryant. She's right about that much, at least. Vanessa gasped while Bryant fumbled for something in the nightstand. A gun, Dominic presumed. With 2 swift strides, Dominic crossed the room and slammed Bryant's head against the nightstand before he could retrieve the weapon. Bryant crumpled to the floor, dazed but conscious. Dominic, how? Vanessa backed away, her eyes wild with fear. The children are gone, Dominic informed her calmly. Already on their way back to the United States under armed escort. You can't do that. Legally. Save it, Vanessa. No court in the world will side with parents who drugged their son and attempted to flee the country with stolen money. Bryant struggled to his feet, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. This is breaking and entering. Assault. I'll have you arrested. By whom? Dominic gestured to the window, where distant sirens could be heard approaching the complex. That would be the Bahamian authorities responding to an anonymous tip about an American fugitive hiding stolen securities in this very condo. The color drained from Bryant's face. You're bluffing. The same tip might have mentioned the private yacht scheduled for departure tonight and the counterfeit passports in the wall safe behind that garish painting. Dominic nodded toward a large abstract canvas dominating one wall. You really should vary your hiding places, Bryant. The same safe configuration in every property. Amateur. Vanessa looked between the two men, calculation replacing fear in her eyes. What do you want, Dominic? There must be something we can offer. Some arrangement. Did you know he drugged our son? Dominic interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. Did you approve that decision, Vanessa? She hesitated just a fraction too long. Of course not. I would never. Don't lie to me. Dominic's control slipped momentarily, his voice rising to a roar that made both Vanessa and Bryant flinch. Not now. Not after everything. Composing himself with visible effort, Dominic continued. Here's what happens next. The authorities will arrest Bryant for financial crimes, attempted kidnapping, and drugging a minor. You, Vanessa, have a choice. What choice? She whispered. Cooperation or complicity. The SEC and FBI already have enough evidence to charge you as an accessory. But with your testimony, immunity might still be possible. Bryant gave a harsh laugh. She won't testify against me. She's as involved as I am. Every luxury she enjoyed came from those stolen funds. Is that true? Dominic asked Vanessa directly. She couldn't meet his eyes. I didn't know specifics. I just didn't ask questions when I should have. And now our children have paid the price for your willful ignorance. Dominic turned as the sirens grew louder, now just outside the building. You have about 2 minutes to decide, Vanessa, cooperate or go down with him. Bryant lunged suddenly, reaching again for the nightstand drawer. This time, he managed to extract a small pistol, swinging it wildly between Dominic and Vanessa. Nobody's cooperating with anything. We're leaving now, all of us. Bryant, put that down, Vanessa pleaded. You're making things worse. Worse? Bryant's laugh was unhinged. They're going to send me to prison for 30 years. There is no worse. There's always worse, Dominic said quietly, not backing away despite the gun now pointed directly at his chest. Prison is just time. Death is permanent. Something in Dominic's tone, the absolute certainty, the lack of fear, seemed to penetrate Bryant's panic. His hand wavered slightly. You wouldn't. I've killed before, Bryant, Dominic replied calmly. In service to my country, but killed nonetheless. What makes you think I wouldn't do the same to protect my children? Before Bryant could respond, the suite's front door exploded inward, followed by shouted commands in English and Spanish. Police, weapons down, hands where we can see them. Bryant swung toward the noise, gun still in hand. A fatal mistake. 2 shots rang out, and Bryant crumpled to the floor, blood blooming across his expensive silk pajamas. In the chaos that followed, Dominic found himself handcuffed and seated in the living room alongside Vanessa, both of them being questioned by Bahamian police and FBI agents who had apparently been coordinating with local authorities. Mr. Reeves, a senior FBI agent, addressed him after confirming his identity. We have some questions about your presence here tonight. I came for my children, Dominic replied simply. They were being taken out of the country against their will. We've already located your son and daughter. They're safe under the protection of U.S. consular officials. Your associate, Mr. Delacroix, has provided a full statement. Vanessa, who had been silent since Bryant's shooting, finally spoke. Is Bryant? Mr. Walsh is alive, but in critical condition, the agent informed her. He's been transported to Nassau Medical Center under guard. Turning back to Dominic, the agent continued. Your attorney, Mr. Frost, has also contacted us with documentation regarding the attempted abduction of your children. Given the circumstances, we're inclined to view your actions as those of a concerned parent rather than criminal in nature. And what about her? Dominic nodded toward Vanessa, who sat pale and shaking on an adjacent sofa. That depends on Mrs. Reeves' level of cooperation. The agent addressed Vanessa directly. We already have substantial evidence linking you to Mr. Walsh's financial schemes. Your choice now is whether to mitigate the consequences through full cooperation. Vanessa looked at Dominic, her eyes pleading. I didn't know about Noah. I swear it. Bryant said it was just something to help him sleep on the flight. But you knew about the rest, Dominic stated flatly. The fraud, the stolen money, the plan to take the children out of the country permanently. Vanessa's shoulders slumped, and she nodded. I knew. I just didn't want to believe it. I thought we could still fix things, make it right somehow. The FBI agent's expression softened slightly. Mrs. Reeves, your cooperation now could make a significant difference in your sentencing. We need your full testimony against Mr. Walsh and any other accomplices. Vanessa took a deep breath, her voice steady as she looked at Dominic. I'll do whatever it takes to protect the children. I'll cooperate fully. Dominic nodded, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over him. The storm had finally broken, and the truth had come to light. Now it was time to rebuild what had been shattered. After a long moment, Vanessa nodded almost imperceptibly. Yes, I knew. Not all the details, but enough. Then you've made your choice, Dominic said, rising as an agent removed his handcuffs. Goodbye, Vanessa. As he walked toward the door, Vanessa called after him. Dominic, wait. The children. Will you tell them I'm sorry? Dominic paused, but didn't turn around. They're old enough to form their own opinions about your actions. I won't influence them either way. And us, after everything we were to each other. At this, Dominic finally turned. There is no us, Vanessa. There hasn't been for years. You chose your path. Now you can walk it alone. With those words, Dominic left the condo, moving with purpose toward the bank of elevators that would take him to the lobby, to a waiting car, and ultimately to a private jet that would reunite him with his children in Key West. Behind him, he could hear Vanessa beginning to talk to the FBI agents, her voice growing steadier as she realized that cooperation was her only chance for leniency. In the elevator, Dominic leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried him through the night was ebbing, leaving room for the full weight of what had transpired to settle on his shoulders. His marriage was irrevocably over. His wife would likely face criminal charges. His children had been traumatized in ways that might take years to heal. Yet through it all, one certainty remained. He had protected what mattered most. His children were safe, and the threat Bryant posed had been neutralized. As the elevator doors opened onto the lobby, Dominic straightened his shoulders and stepped forward into whatever came next. The Key West Safe House, a modest Spanish colonial tucked away on a quiet street far from the tourist areas, had served as Dominic's personal retreat for years. Few people knew of its existence. Even Vanessa had visited only once, early in their marriage, before she decided the location was too remote, too lacking in social opportunities to be worthwhile. Now, as Dominic approached the wrought iron gate that shielded the property from the street, he felt a profound sense of coming home, not to a place, but to a version of himself he had suppressed during his years of playing the successful businessman and family man. Lawrence met him at the door, his expression grim. "They're asleep. Noah finally came around about 4 hours ago, disoriented but otherwise okay. The doctor says whatever they gave him was a common benzodiazepine, nothing exotic. And Abigail, holding up better than you'd expect. Strong kid, that one. Reminds me of you." Dominic managed a tired smile. Her mother would hate that comparison. Inside, the house was cool and quiet. Ceiling fans stirred the air, scented with jasmine from the courtyard garden. Dominic checked on his children. First Noah, sprawled across a bed still fully clothed, then Abigail, curled on her side in the adjoining room, her breathing slow and steady. For the first time in what felt like years, Dominic exhaled in relief, grateful simply to be near them. The danger, at least for now, set aside. Her phone clutched in her hand, even in sleep. In the kitchen, he found Lawrence had prepared coffee and a simple meal. "You should eat," his friend advised. "It's been 24 hours. Dominic nodded, forcing himself to take a few bites of the scrambled eggs and toast. "Any word from the authorities?" "Bryant Walsh is in surgery. Touch and go, from what my contacts say. Vanessa is cooperating, naming names, providing account details, the works. The FBI is considering immunity in exchange for her testimony against the bigger fish." "She always was a survivor," Dominic remarked without bitterness. "The judge, Prescott, has been detained for questioning. Apparently, he received substantial consulting fees from Walsh over the years. I'm not surprised. The system was rigged from the start." Lawrence refilled their coffee cups. "What happens now?" "With the kids, I mean." Before Dominic could answer, Abigail appeared in the doorway, her hair tousled from sleep, but her eyes alert. "That's what I'd like to know too." Rising from his chair, Dominic opened his arms, and Abigail stepped into his embrace without hesitation. "You're safe now. That's what matters." Pulling back, Abigail fixed him with a direct gaze. "What happened in Nassau?" "The truth, Dad." Dominic gestured for her to sit, then recounted the events of the previous night. Bryant's panic, the confrontation, the arrival of the authorities, and the shooting. Throughout his explanation, he remained factual, omitting only the most graphic details. "And Mom, what will happen to her?" "Prison, most likely, though her cooperation may reduce the sentence. The financial crimes alone carry significant penalties, and the attempted removal of minors from the country adds another layer." Abigail absorbed this with remarkable composure. She really believed Bryant would save her, didn't she? Right up until the end. People see what they want to see, especially when the alternative is admitting they've made a terrible mistake. "Like we did," came Noah's voice from the hallway. He looked pale but steady as he joined them at the table. "We believed all their lies about you." Dominic reached for his son's hand. "You were manipulated by experts, Noah. No one blames you." "I blame me," Noah insisted. "I should have seen through it. The way Bryant suddenly became so interested in us after you created the trust. The rush to adoption. It was so obvious in retrospect." "Hindsight is always clearer than foresight," Dominic said gently. "What matters is that you recognized the truth when it was presented to you." Abigail exchanged a look with her brother before addressing their father. "The trust, is it really as substantial as Bryant believed? Enough that he was willing to commit kidnapping to get control of it?" "The trust is significant," Dominic confirmed, "but not for the reasons Bryant thought. The majority of the assets are structured to provide for your education, housing, and basic needs until you're 25. After that, you'll have access to the principal, which is substantial but not the unlimited fortune Bryant imagined." "What about Reeves EC?" Noah asked. Bryant kept saying it was worth 8 figures, maybe 9 with the right management. Dominic smiled slightly. "Reeves EC is valuable, yes, but its true worth isn't in its current contracts or assets. It's in its potential, and in the subsidiary companies most people don't know about." "Subsidiaries?" Abigail looked surprised. "What subsidiaries?" Specialized divisions operating under different names in different sectors. Cybersecurity, private intelligence, specialized training programs for corporate and government clients. I kept them separate from the main company for precisely this scenario, to protect them from any potential legal complications involving Reeves EC itself. And Bryant never knew about them? Noah asked, impressed despite himself. Bryant saw what I wanted him to see. A successful but straightforward security company that would make him rich but not wealthy. The real wealth was always hidden beneath layers of corporate structures he never bothered to investigate fully. Lawrence, who had been quietly observing the family reunion, cleared his throat. The media is starting to pick up the story. Walsh's arrest, the financial scandal. It's going to be everywhere by tomorrow. Abigail's face fell. Everyone will know. School, friends. Which is why you both have a decision to make, Dominic said. We can stay and weather the storm. Deal with the publicity, the questions, the inevitable social fallout. Or we can make a fresh start somewhere else, at least until the worst of it blows over. Where? Noah asked. I have properties in several places. London, Singapore, a ranch in Montana. The choice is yours. The twins exchanged another look, communicating silently in that way they had since childhood. Finally, Noah spoke for both of them. We want to stay with you, Dad, wherever that is, but not Boston. Abigail added firmly. Not where everyone knows us as the Walsh kids now. Dominic nodded. Montana then. It's peaceful, remote. Good schools nearby, or private tutors if you prefer. And when you're ready for college, you can go anywhere you choose. What about Mom? Noah asked quietly. Will we see her again? Dominic chose his words carefully. That's entirely up to you. Whatever she's done, she's still your mother. I won't stand in the way of any relationship you choose to maintain with her, even after everything she did to us. Abigail sounded skeptical. What she did to me is between us. Your relationship with her is separate. Lawrence's phone buzzed with an incoming message. After reading it, he looked up grimly. Bryant Walsh died on the operating table 20 minutes ago. Complications from the gunshot wounds. A heavy silence settled over the kitchen. Finally, Dominic spoke. That changes things legally, for Vanessa primarily. Is she going to be charged with his crimes now? Noah asked. Possibly as an accessory, depending on what evidence emerges. But without Bryant to testify against her, her value as a witness diminishes. Abigail's expression hardened. Good. Let her face the consequences. Dominic studied his daughter, concerned by the coldness in her voice. Abby, revenge isn't a path I'd recommend. I've walked it. I know where it leads. Isn't that exactly what you did, though? She challenged. Set up the trust, gather evidence, wait for the right moment to strike back. I protected what was mine. You, Noah, the company I built, but I never sought revenge for its own sake. What's the difference? Noah pressed. Dominic considered the question seriously. Intent. Protection looks forward, seeking to secure the future. Revenge looks backward, trying to balance accounts that can never truly be balanced. The conversation was interrupted by Lawrence's phone ringing again. This time, the call was brief, but it left him looking troubled. What is it? Dominic asked once Lawrence had hung up. Vanessa. She's asking. No, demanding. To speak with you. Says it's about the children. Dominic glanced at the twins, who were watching him intently. What do you think? Should I take the call? Again, that silent communication passed between them before Abigail answered. We want to hear what she has to say. Put it on speaker. Dominic nodded to Lawrence, who dialed back the number. When Vanessa's voice filled the kitchen, it was strained but controlled. Dominic, can you hear me? I'm here. Abigail and Noah are with me on speaker. A sharp intake of breath. The children. Are they all right? We're fine, Mom, Abigail replied coolly. No thanks to you or Bryant. Abby, please. You have to understand. Understand what? Noah interrupted. That you drugged me. That you were going to take us to Switzerland and never come back. That you chose Bryant over your own family. It wasn't like that, Vanessa insisted. Bryant said. Bryant is dead, Dominic stated flatly. Whatever he said no longer matters. Silence. Then a soft sob. Dead? How? He died during surgery. The official cause hasn't been released. They'll blame me, Vanessa whispered, without him to corroborate my testimony. They'll say I was equally responsible. Dominic, please, you have to help me. For the children's sake. The naked desperation in her voice might once have moved Dominic, but now he felt only a distant pity. What exactly are you asking for, Vanessa? Testimony. Character witness. Anything to show I was manipulated, that I didn't understand the extent of what was happening. But you did, Abigail said before Dominic could respond. You knew enough to try to take us out of the country. You knew enough to lie to us about Dad for years. I was protecting you. No. Noah's voice was quiet but firm. You were protecting yourself, your lifestyle, your reputation. Noah, please. We're done, Mom, Abigail declared. Maybe someday we can talk again, but not now. Not after what you've done. Vanessa's voice took on an edge of panic. Please, you can't just shut me out. Don't let them turn you against me. I'm still your mother. Dominic, don't let them do this. Don't turn them against me. The children are making their own decisions, Dominic replied evenly, just as you made yours. You promised, Vanessa cried. When the FBI was questioning me, you said you wouldn't influence them against me. And I haven't. Their opinions are their own, formed by witnessing your actions firsthand. There was a long pause. Then Vanessa's voice returned, now cold and calculating. Fine. If that's how you want to play this. Remember, I still have information that could damage you. Your military service wasn't as spotless as you've led everyone to believe. Dominic felt rather than saw his children's attention sharpen. Is that a threat, Vanessa? It's a reminder that everyone has secrets. Even you, Dominic. Mom, Noah interjected, sounding suddenly older than his 17 years. Don't do this. Don't make it worse. I'm fighting for my life here, Vanessa replied. For my freedom. Surely you can understand that. Dominic met his children's questioning gazes across the table. Whatever Vanessa thinks she knows about my past, I've never hidden anything from the authorities. My military record is classified, but clean. That's not how Bryant's contacts in Washington described it, Vanessa countered. Certain operations in certain countries that officially never happened. Enough, Dominic's voice cut through her words like a blade. If you want to trade information with the prosecutors, go ahead, but leave the children out of it. I just want to see them. Talk to them, face to face. Is that so much to ask? Abigail and Noah exchanged another look before Noah responded. Not now, Mom. We need time. Time for what? Vanessa asked. Time to figure out who we are outside of your lies and Bryant's manipulation, Abigail said firmly. Time to decide what kind of relationship we want with either of you going forward. Vanessa's laugh was bitter. So that's it. After everything I've sacrificed for you. What exactly did you sacrifice, Mom? Noah asked quietly. Your integrity. Your honor. Those weren't sacrifices. They were choices. The call ended abruptly as Vanessa hung up. In the silence that followed, Dominic studied his children with a mixture of pride and concern. Are you both all right? Abigail nodded slowly. I think so. It's just strange. Hearing her try to manipulate us even now. That's who she is, Noah observed. Maybe who she's always been, and we just couldn't see it. People are complicated, Dominic offered. Your mother included. Don't make the mistake of reducing her to just her worst moments. Just as I hope you won't define me solely by my best ones. Lawrence, who had remained a silent witness to the family drama, rose from his chair. I should check on our travel arrangements. If we're heading to Montana, There's a lot to coordinate. Once they were alone, Abigail asked the question Dominic had been expecting since Nassau. What did Mom mean about your military service? About operations that officially never happened? Dominic measured his response carefully. Before I met your mother, I served in units that conducted classified operations. Some of those operations took place in countries where the U.S. officially had no military presence at the time. Black Ops, Nove said, clearly familiar with the term. Like in the movies. Not exactly like in the movies, but yes, covert operations. Everything I did was sanctioned by proper authorities, even if those sanctions were classified. And that's what Mom was threatening to expose. Abigail pressed. Presumably. But as I said, the relevant agencies already know my history. Vanessa was grasping at straws. Noah looked troubled. Did you kill people during these operations? It would have been easy to deflect, to offer a sanitized version of the truth. But Dominic had promised himself never to lie to his children, even when the truth was difficult. Yes. In combat situations, following lawful orders, protecting my team and my country. It's not something I'm proud of, but neither is it something I regret, given the circumstances. The twins absorbed this in silence. Finally, Abigail spoke. Is that why you were so calm through all of this? Because you faced worse? Dominic considered the question. Perhaps, or perhaps it's because I learned long ago that panic never improves a bad situation. Clear thinking and decisive action are always better options. Will you teach us? Noel asked unexpectedly. Not to, but to be prepared. To think clearly under pressure. If that's what you want, yes. There are skills worth learning. Not just physical defense, but mental discipline, situational awareness, strategic thinking. Abigail's expression turned resolute. We want to learn everything, so no one can ever manipulate or threaten us again. Looking at his children, no longer the naive teens who had turned their backs on him at that birthday dinner, but young adults forged in the fire of betrayal, Dominic felt a complex mixture of sadness and pride. They had lost their innocence, but perhaps they had gained something more valuable. Resilience, discernment, strength of character. Then we'll begin your education in Montana, he promised. A fresh start with clear eyes and no illusions. 3 years passed like shifting seasons across the Montana landscape. Winter's stark beauty gave way to explosive spring, the brief glory of summer, and autumn's melancholy palette. For Dominic, Abigail, and Noah, the ranch became not just a refuge, but a true home, a place of healing and growth. The media frenzy around the Walsh financial scandal had eventually faded, though not before revealing the full extent of Bryant's crimes. Hundreds of millions embezzled from Boston's elite families. Offshore accounts in a dozen countries. Decades of systematic fraud. The Aldridges, once Boston aristocracy, had been left nearly destitute. Through all the turmoil and change, Dominic and his children discovered that the greatest wealth was something neither courts nor criminals could touch, a hard-won peace and the freedom to build their own future together. Their fortunes siphoned away by the man they had trusted implicitly. Vanessa had faced trial for her role in the scheme, ultimately receiving a 10-year sentence reduced to 6, with the possibility of parole after 4, thanks to her extensive cooperation with prosecutors. Her letters came monthly to the ranch, first demanding, then pleading, and finally reflective as the reality of her situation settled in. Abigail read them all but rarely responded. Noah answered occasionally, with brief, polite notes that revealed little of his true feelings. The twins had flourished in Montana, completing their high school education with private tutors before both were accepted to prestigious universities. Abigail to Stanford for business and computer science, Noah to Juilliard for his cello, his talent having only deepened through the family's ordeal. Dominic had restructured Reeves EC and its subsidiaries, appointing Lawrence as CEO, while he focused on specialized consulting work that allowed him to remain primarily in Montana. He traveled occasionally to London or Singapore, to oversee his international interests. But home was always the ranch with its sprawling acreage and big sky. On a crisp October morning, exactly 5 years to the day since that fateful birthday dinner, Dominic sat on the ranch house porch, watching the sun illuminate the distant Rockies. Abigail and Noah, home for fall break, joined him with mugs of coffee. "Happy birthday, Dad," Abigail said, kissing his cheek before settling into an adjacent chair. "The big 5-0, Noah added with a grin. "Half a century." Dominic smiled. "When did you two become so grown up?" "Somewhere between the kidnapping attempt and learning to fly the helicopter," Abigail replied dryly, referring to the pilot's license she'd earned the previous summer, one of many skills she'd mastered under Dominic's guidance. Noah's phone buzzed with an incoming text. After reading it, he glanced at his sister. "It's from Mom. She's being released next week. Early parole for good behavior." "I know," Dominic said. "Her lawyer contacted me yesterday." Abigail's expression tightened. "She wants to see us, I assume." "She does, but that decision is entirely yours, both of you. I've maintained my promise not to influence your relationship with her." "What about you?" Noah asked. "Will you see her?" Dominic considered the question. "I haven't decided. There's little left to say between us." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of an approaching vehicle, unusual for the isolated ranch. Lawrence's black SUV appeared on the long driveway, dust billowing behind it as it approached the house. "I didn't know Lawrence was visiting," Abigail remarked as they watched the vehicle park beside Dominic's truck. Lawrence emerged looking grave, carrying a leather document case. He nodded to the twins before addressing Dominic. "Sorry to intrude on family time, but this couldn't wait." "What is it?" Dominic asked, rising to greet his friend. Lawrence's expression was somber as he held out the envelope, the weight of whatever news he carried filling the crisp Montana air with anticipation. Lawrence glanced at Abigail and Noah. "Perhaps we should speak privately." "Whatever it is, they can hear it," Dominic said firmly. "No more secrets in this family." With a nod, Lawrence opened the document case and extracted a thick manila envelope. "This arrived at the Boston office yesterday. Addressed to you. It's from Judge Prescott." Dominic raised an eyebrow. Harold Prescott had received a 15-year sentence for his role in Bryant's schemes, the harsh penalty reflecting his abuse of judicial authority. "What does he want?" "He's dying. Terminal cancer. The prison medical facility gives him less than a month." Lawrence handed over the envelope. "He says it's important. A final confession of sorts." Inside the envelope, Dominic found a handwritten letter and a small USB drive. The letter was brief, but startling. "Dominic, as I face my mortality, I find myself compelled to unburden my conscience of one final secret. The attached records reveal the truth about Bryant Walsh's most insidious scheme, one that directly affected your family in ways you don't yet realize. The adoption papers Bryant prepared for your children were not merely a ploy to access the trust. They were part of a contingency plan established years earlier, with origins that will disturb you deeply. I was complicit in this, as in so many of Bryant's endeavors, and for that, I can only offer my profound apology. It will not absolve me, but perhaps it will bring you clarity. Harold Prescott." Dominic handed the letter to the twins, who read it together, their expressions growing increasingly troubled. "What's on the drive?" Noah asked. Dominic inserted the USB into his laptop, which Lawrence had brought from the car. The drive contained a single folder labeled Reeves Walsh, with dozens of documents inside: emails, financial records, legal filings, and DNA test results. As they pored over the materials, a shocking narrative emerged. Bryant Walsh's interest in the Reeves family had begun long before he was introduced as a financial advisor. He had targeted Dominic specifically, inserting himself into their lives with meticulous planning. "Look at this," Abigail said, pointing to an email exchange between Bryant and an unnamed associate dated nearly 15 years earlier. "They were tracking Dad's business from the beginning," looking for a way in. But why? Noah wondered. Reeves' EC wasn't that valuable back then. The answer came in a password-protected file titled Contingency Authorization. Once decrypted, it revealed the final devastating piece of the puzzle. Bryant Walsh had been working for Victor Aldrich, patriarch of the Aldrich family, to systematically destroy Dominic Reeves. The reason? During one of Dominic's classified military operations, he had been forced to make a decision that resulted in the death of Aldrich's youngest son, a CIA operative embedded with Dominic's team. "This can't be real," Abigail whispered, reading the document with growing horror. Noah's face paled as the implications settled in. So all of it, Bryant, the financial sabotage, Mom being manipulated, even the attempt to adopt us, was orchestrated just to get revenge on you. Dominic's hands shook as he closed the laptop. It seemed so. Aldrich couldn't touch me directly, so he hired Bryant to destroy everything I cared about. And Bryant did exactly that, piece by piece, until we fought back. For a long, silent moment, the family sat on the sun-drenched Montana porch, the full weight of the past years settling around them. But in that silence, Dominic realized that, despite having been targeted by old enemies and betrayed by those closest to him, he still had what mattered most, a future with his children, built on truth and hard-won trust. Abigail reached over and squeezed his hand. "We're still standing, Dad. Together. No matter what." Dominic nodded, his heart full of gratitude for the family that had endured so much and chosen, again and again, to endure together. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. Aldrich blamed Dad for his son's death, even though it was classified as a necessary tactical decision. So he hired Bryant to infiltrate our lives. Noah continued. To get close to Mom, to turn her against Dad, to eventually gain control of everything Dad had built, and ultimately to adopt you both, Dominic added quietly. Victor Aldrich couldn't bring back his son, so he sought to take mine. To make my children legally his grandchildren through Bryant's adoption and subsequent marriage to his daughter Catherine. Catherine Aldrich. Abigail looked up sharply. Bryant was going to leave Mom for Catherine once the adoption was finalized. Lawrence nodded grimly. According to these documents, yes. Vanessa was always just a means to an end. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Dominic had known Bryant was manipulative, knew he had targeted the Reeves family deliberately, but this level of calculated malice, spanning over a decade, was staggering. "Does Mom know about this?" Noah asked, looking pale. "I don't think so," Dominic replied after careful consideration. According to these emails, she was considered an unwitting asset. Bryant seduced her to gain access to our family, but he never revealed the larger plan. Abigail's expression hardened as she continued reading. It wasn't just Bryant. The Aldriches used their influence to pressure Judge Prescott, to fast-track the divorce proceedings, to ensure Dad would lose everything. And when my own precautions complicated their plan, they became desperate, Dominic added. Hence the kidnapping attempt, the rush to get you both out of the country. Lawrence, who had been reviewing the financial records, looked up with dawning comprehension. The Ponzi scheme wasn't Bryant's original intention. It started when he needed more capital to maintain his cover, to keep up the facade of success, and eventually spiraled into the massive fraud that brought down the Aldrich family themselves. Dominic finished. Poetic justice in a way. Noah set aside the documents, his expression troubled. What do we do with this information? Does it even matter now, after all this time? It matters, Abigail said firmly. It means Mom was a victim too, in a way. Manipulated as part of a revenge plot she knew nothing about. Dominic considered this carefully. Perhaps, though it doesn't excuse her choices once the manipulation began, but it might explain them, Noah suggested. Bryant was specifically targeting her vulnerabilities, executing a plan designed by professionals to break apart our family. A heavy silence fell over the porch as they all processed the implications. Finally, Dominic spoke. The question now is whether this information changes anything for any of us. Does knowing the full truth alter how we move forward? Abigail and Noah exchanged one of their telepathic looks before Abigail answered. I think it does, at least for me. I've been so angry at Mom for so long. But seeing how thoroughly she was manipulated, how all of us were manipulated, makes me want to try to forgive her, even if I can't forget. This doesn't erase what she did, but it helps me understand it better, Abigail said. I want to see her when she's released, Noah added, not to reconcile completely, but at least to talk. With this new context, Dominic nodded, respecting their decision. And Victor Aldrich, the man who orchestrated all of this, what about him? Lawrence asked. He lost everything in the financial scandal, Dominic noted. His fortune, his social standing, even his historic family home. His revenge plot not only failed but backfired spectacularly. Is that enough? Abigail wondered. After what he tried to do to our family. Dominic studied his daughter's face, recognizing the steely determination that mirrored his own. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking what you think. Is justice served, or is there an outstanding debt? It was a crucial question, one that would define not just Dominic's response to this revelation, but the moral example he set for his children. 5 years earlier, he might have answered differently. Now, after watching Abigail and Noah rebuild their lives with courage and integrity, he found his perspective had shifted. Victor Aldrich has suffered the consequences of his actions, Dominic said finally. His son's death was a tragedy, one that I regret deeply, even though the decision I made was necessary to save others. But his response, attempting to destroy an innocent family, has brought him nothing but further loss. So we do nothing. Noah seemed surprised. I didn't say that, Dominic replied. We live well. We continue building something meaningful from the ashes of what was destroyed. We refuse to be defined by the hatred others tried to inscribe upon our story. For a long moment, the four of them sat in silence, watching the Montana sun illuminate the distant mountains. Then Abigail reached for her father's hand. That's the best revenge of all, isn't it? Showing Victor Aldrich, showing everyone, that they failed, that they couldn't break us, no matter how hard they tried. Precisely, Dominic confirmed. Some might call it forgiveness, but it's not quite that. It's something stronger, the recognition that they no longer hold any power over us. Noah considered this, then nodded slowly. So when Mom is released next week, we'll meet with her, Dominic decided, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. All of us together. We'll show her the documents, explain what we've learned. After that, each of us can decide individually what kind of relationship we want moving forward. Even you? Abigail asked, studying her father's face. After everything. Dominic thought carefully before answering. I'll never trust Vanessa again. What we had is irrevocably broken, but hatred requires energy. I'm no longer willing to expend. Lawrence, who had remained silent during this exchange, spoke up. What about Judge Prescott's confession? Should it be made public? No, Dominic said firmly. Let him take this secret to his grave. It won't bring back what was lost, and it won't change the past, but it might give him some small measure of peace in his final days. And perhaps, in a way, that's enough. The Aldridge name has already been dragged through enough mud. Catherine Aldridge was likely as much a pawn in her father's scheme as Vanessa was in Bryant's. As Lawrence prepared to leave, promising to return for dinner, Dominic and the twins remained on the porch, the mountains before them, the revelations of the past behind them. The path forward was not without complications, but it was theirs to define. Happy birthday, Dad, Noah said again, this time with deeper meaning. I think this might be the beginning of something new for all of us. Dominic nodded, feeling a sense of peace that had eluded him for years. The beginning, not the end. That's what matters most. As the autumn sun warmed their faces, Dominic Reeves understood that his greatest victory wasn't in the revenge he had executed 5 years earlier, but in the family that had emerged stronger from its crucible. A family bound not by blind loyalty or obligation, but by clear-eyed understanding and conscious choice. That, more than any act of retribution, was a legacy worth building.